My name is Weiheng Bai. Today I'm going to present our work, BULKHEAD, secure, scalable, and efficient kernel compartmentalization with PKS. The operating system kernel serves as a cornerstone of system software. Unfortunately, it faces a continued influx of vulnerabilities. The Linux kernel reported about 2,000 CVEs in 2024. According to our analysis, the kernel vulnerabilities are widely distributed across subsystems. We also can see that the number of issues from the core kernel is comparable to some neutral subsystems such as IPv6 and NAT filters. What's worse, most mainstream OS kernels, like the Linux kernel, are monolithic for performance and compatible reasons. Our kernel components share the supervised privilege for data access and code execution, most of which are irrelevant to their intended duties. As a result, exploring a single vulnerability in any component can potentially compromise the entire system. The endless stream of vulnerabilities urgently calls for principled mitigation to confine the effect of exploitation, kernel compartmentalization. We isolate modules into several separate compartments, with each compartment having access only to the data and code necessary for its functionality. Consequently, the impact of an exploit module is constrained, preventing system damage. Here is an overview of our solution, which leverages Intel's recent hardware feature PKS to isolate modules into mutual untrusted compartments and benefits from its fast compartment switching. PKS refers to memory protection keys for supervisor mode. It tags pages with 4-bit protection keys, which refers to P keys, in the page table entries, PTE, which partitions the address space to at most 16 memory domains. The permission of pages with a specific P key are stored in a dedicated per thread register, PKRS, as a 2-bit notation, WD and AD, where WD means write disable and AD means access disable. We also exclude the core kernel from the TCB and tag it as well as other Linux kernel modules refers to LKMs with distinct P keys. A newly introduced lightweight in-kernel monitor is in charge of enforcing security environments, including data integrity, execute-only memory, XOM, and compart interface integrity. With a specially designed switch gate table, SGT, the compartment switching is performed secure and efficiently. While it sounds straightforward, employing PKS in kernel compartmentalization presents unique challenges due to mutual untrusted and complex environment. With a systematic survey, we summarize the objectives of kernel compartmentalization in 4 domains: security, scalability, performance, and compatibility. The weakness of current works is shown as below. The first, microkernel minimize the attack surface by moving most kernel components into isolated user process. Although providing strong protection, heavy inter-process communication leads to low performance. The complete redesign of the OS also hinders its general application. Software fault isolation (SFI)-based approaches establish an isolated domain by instrumenting each memory access instruction with security checks during compile time, which result in significant overhead. Virtualization-based approaches employ a hypervisor to protect execution domains and can form different memory views with extended pages tables, which refer to EPTS. However, the additional layer makes the trusted computing-based TCB more complex. Running systems in virtual machines results in extra overhead and nested virtualization restrictions. There are also some efforts that utilize various hardware features to protect the kernel, but cannot scale to multiple compartments because of the hardware limitation. So let's see how the BULKHEAD achieves such objectives. First, BULKHEAD enforces PKS-based bidirectional isolation within the kernel space. which breaks the monopoly of the core kernel without introducing any additional layer. An in-kernel monitor is constructed through privilege separation within the same level of the kernel. For memory resources, each compartment is tagged with a distinct key, a P key. Specifically, the PT and the SGT is write protected. Only the monitor has the privilege to update this metadata related to access control. For instruction and register resources, we eliminate privilege instruction in compartments other than the monitor by binary rewriting. Here we show some examples for unintended instructions, such as knob insertion, register reassignment, and data adjustment. The monitor enforces a series of environments for comprehensive protection. First, data of each compartment can only be modified by itself. The page table can only be modified by the monitor, and each compartment uses its private heap with a tagged memory pool. For control flow protection, BULKHEAD makes all kernel code cannot be read or written by anyone, which mitigates code injection or code reuse attacks. Next, we introduce a new environment for compartment interface protection against confused deputed attacks. With compartment interface integrity, compartment switches must occur at the predefined entry-exit points and pass data according to the secure policies, as shown in this figure. The switch gate first uses a registry gate ID to retrieve the gate metadata from the write protected SGT. According to the metadata, it verifies the source address and updates CR3 if the source and the target compartment are in different address space. For example, the two-level compartmentalization. Then it changes the PKRS to the target value on demand by WRMSR, switches to the private stacks of target compartment, and finally jumps to the target address recording in the SGT. This metadata checks guarantee that the compartment interface cannot be misused by the attackers. Besides security, scalability is another significant object. The benefits of compartmentalization depend on the granularity of the compartments, which is limited by the number of supported domains. The Linux kernel contains thousands of LKMs. However, the 4-bit P key limits the available compartments to the maximum of 16. As a solution, we propose a two-level compartmentalization scheme. The first level is PKS-based intra-address space isolation, while the second level is locality-aware address space switching with ASID. We divide the page tables into the shared and private parts, and group modules into multiple address spaces according to the locality of module interactions. A module dependence specified by the module step. With different memory mapping, each address space has its own 16 P keys, thus supporting 16 new compartments. For example, in the figure, the LKM1 and LKM2 are isolated within the same address space through different P keys, while LKM1 and unrelated LKM3 are isolated in different address space and reuse the same key. For the performance objective, the hardware-based compartment switch only involves a specific register update. Besides, tag-based approaches support zero-copy data transfer. BULKHEAD tags data with a specific P key, which enforces single ownership of objects. As a response to compartment switching, access from the target compartment will trigger a page fault. Then the monitor validates the shared data and just updates its P keys in the dedicated handler without copying data across compartments. So we evaluate our BULKHEAD in several domains, just like I said, security, scalability, and performance. we performed the comprehensive security analysis to evaluate the effectiveness of BULKHEAD, considering several attacks, data-oriented attacks, control flow, hijacking attacks. And the result shows that all malicious attempts are detected by memory protection key violation or rejected by the monitor checks. So in this table, we show some results of performance evaluation. The increase in the number of compartments does not significantly increase overhead, benefiting from our lightweight switch gate and locality-aware design. For Phoronix text suite, BULKHEAD incurs an average performance overhead of 2.44% for real-world applications with 160 compartmentalized LKMs. While focusing on the specific compartment, Apache Bench tests on IPv6 show an overhead about 2%, 2%, much better than the SOTA HAC-C. The memory overhead is 1.66% for LM Bench and 0.63% for Phoronix, which is negligible for modern system. So in conclusion, a compartmentalization solution needs to answer these questions: what, where, and how. We use PKS-based bidirectional isolation at the BULKHEAD, pull them according to LLVM-based boundary analysis, and design secure, scalable, and efficient switchgate to set up the BULKHEAD. Lastly, we hope more systems could be benefited from the compartmentalization based on the principle of least privilege. That's all.
We have time for a few questions. If you want to ask a question, please approach to the microphone in the middle. Okay, I want to take this privilege to ask one question. This is great work. This is using this hardware feature provided by Intel. But we have seen a lot of proposals using isolation, or called compartmentalization, to protect the kernel, protect user space programs. I mean, the overhead is low. Performance overhead, CPU overhead is low. But it's interesting to see. Have you talked with the Linux maintainers and see what's their feedback? And what's the main problem? This is still not even implemented into Linux. I mean, it seems now the solutions of isolation has been put into production yet. So it's very interesting to see the feedback.
That's a good question. But when we were working on this work, we did not contact with Linux. So I think it will be a follow-up question. I think we will ask them about their opinion about this work.
Yeah, I think these days Linux seems to have a lot of discussion on securing the system, like using Rust and others. It's a good idea to talk with them and see their feedback. Maybe they're going to tell you why they're not doing this, or there's another challenge you should address before they put this into production.
Yeah, totally agree.
Okay, so do we have any other question? Okay, if no, let's thank the speaker. We hung one more time.